to another episode of Sports with Steve. I'm Steve. So this is our third episode. We have our cameraman Scott here.
Hi.
They can't see you waving, Scott. We have our producer Mike back in Iowa. He's not really worth much, but we don't tell him that. We like to make him think he's worth something. Today, we have a few topics in mind. If you want to get a hold of me, this is a question and answer based show. I want you, the viewers, to ask me questions. Well, first I like to learn how to speak, and then, if you watched last week's episode, I kind of had some mumbles over there too. So, once again, not a professional. I am just a guy who is very intelligent about sports, but I'm not highly trained. That being said, my opinion should be taken into account because I'm right most of the time, as Scott will know. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm on the Twitter at SVSU Iowa. The best way to ask a question to me or tell me I'm a worthless sack of crap is to hit me up at Gmail. I like saying hit me up. I don't know what it is with hit me up. That seems to be my phrase. Why don't you hit me up? I don't know what that little shoulder thing was either. Eventually I will start talking about sports. SVSUiowa@gmail.com. That's how you ask me questions. I will answer any and all questions, probably, that have to do with sports. My best thing is the NFL. That's where I'm the strongest, but I do know about the MLB. I do know about the NBA. I'm still working on the NHL. Coming from Iowa, we don't have any professional sports teams, and hockey is not one of our biggest things to watch. We do have some minor league hockey teams and some independent league hockey teams, but that is not one of our big things. That doesn't mean that I won't answer questions about the NHL, because I will try. I know that the Detroit Red Wings have only won one at home, and that the Tampa Bay, can't remember what their team mascot is. Tampa Bay, the last time they won at J. Lewis Arena, is that what it's called, in Detroit? Wherever the Red Wings play, I think it's J. Lewis.
Yes.
They beat Detroit last night, 3-2 in overtime. The last time they won was January 12th. I think it was January 12th, 1994. So 19 years since the last time Tampa Bay has won in Detroit, and they did it last night. Go Detroit. So there's the NHL. I will also talk about the MLS, even though I don't really want to, and college sports. I'm pretty good with college sports. I'm actually going to talk about college sports today, football in particular. High school sports, I really like to avoid it just because there are so many high school sports. And if you're talking about high school sports, it means you're probably in high school, which means that I don't necessarily know a lot about it. But I will answer any and all questions that you have. I will try. I will do my research. Can you please have them in by Friday at SVSU Iowa on Twitter, SVSUiowa@gmail.com through Gmail. I will get your answers to you. This week, we are talking about Heisman, who I think should win the Heisman, but there's between two candidates for me. It's between Jameis Winston of Florida State, and it's been between Johnny Manziel of Texas A&M. I'll go over their stats and what I think on that. Stats aren't everything, but I will go over a little bit of their stats and go through that. I will also talk about my NFL matchup of the week. Being near Detroit, a lot of people are going to expect me to talk about Detroit and Chicago. That's not quite the best game. I think Carolina and San Francisco is the best game. I think that's going to be a really, really good game, and it's going to be a proving point for a lot of people. Colin Kaepernick, San Francisco is 6-2. Cam Newton and the Panthers, I think, are 5-3. They're in second place in the NFC South. 5-3, 6-3, 5-4. Check on that.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I forgot their record around the top, but either way, they're good, and they've kind of surprised people. Cam Newton, I believe, has won 4 straight. He's played pretty dang well, so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Dolphins Scandal. Give you a little bit of my insight on that. I'm not a professional, I don't know everything, but I'll try and give you my insight. So first we'll start off with college football. We'll start off with Iowa. The Iowa Hawkeyes won their 6th game yesterday, against the Purdue Boilermakers. And, Purdue really sucks. They're 1-8. Iowa is now 6-3. They're bowl eligible. Yes. I'm an Iowa fan from Iowa, if you didn't get that from the SVSU Iowa part. From Iowa, so I'm proud of the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is a good season, and not necessarily because they're bowl eligible, but because they're playing good football. They've lost to Ohio State by 10 points, and they played well until the second half when Braxton Miller took over. And their running back, who I forget the name of, had 200 rushing yards for Ohio State. They lost against Michigan State early on. They lost 26-14. They were leading Michigan State 14-12 going into halftime, and then they kind of petered out in the second half, but that's okay. They played tough against Michigan State. Michigan State has one of, if not the best defense in all of college football. I do not have a problem with the loss to Michigan State. They also lost to Wisconsin last week, or Nebraska. Nebraska. Which one's ranked? Is it Wisconsin or Nebraska? Look it up. Like I said, not a professional. I have Scott looking up my statistics for me.
San Francisco 6-2.
Carolina. What Carolina?
Oh, 5-3.
5-3. Carolina's 5-3. Thank you, Scott. Like I said, if you think I'm an idiot, please let me know. If you know I'm an idiot, I know. But once we get into the meat and bones of what I'm talking about, you'll understand. Whether it's Nebraska or Wisconsin, they were ranked 24 at the time, and Iowa didn't necessarily play well. But I do not have a problem with that loss. So Iowa Hawkeyes, 6-3, bowl eligible, go Hawks. The SVSU Cardinals. If you're not getting it, I'm at Saginaw Valley from the SVSU part of SVSU, Iowa. The Saginaw Valley State University Cardinals are 9-1 on the season, 9-0 in the GLIAC, the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. They beat, they won last night 52-17, yesterday, 52-17. John Jennings threw for 5 touchdowns. Jeff Janis had 230 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jeff Janis has 14 touchdowns on the year. John Jennings, our quarterback, has 30 touchdowns on the year. SVSU was really, really good, and I have held my tongue so far because I did not want to jinx them, because in Division II there's a playoff system, and it's really, only 6 teams get into the playoffs from this region. So it's a very tight window for missing it. They go against Grand Valley State University, our arch rivals, next week for the Battle of the Valleys. Grand Valley has won a lot. I think SVSU has won twice in the last 10 years. This is Battle Valley's number 11. So, I don't know what that was. That was me trying to do the Roman numeral X, but there's an I after it for 11. So I guess I don't know what I was doing. But SVSU is playing very, very well. Grand Valley has lost twice, but they are still very much in the playoff hunt. SVSU, if Ohio Dominican wins in the GLIAC South and SVSU wins, they will share the division title. If Ohio Dominican loses and SVSU wins, SVSU wins the GLIAC division title, conference title, the GLIAC, the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference title, the redundancy of Department of Redundancy. If SVSU loses and Ohio Dominican wins, You know, it's very tight, it's very highly contested. Ohio Dominican is completely undefeated. What do you have?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin 24.
Okay, so it was Wisconsin that I lost to.
Yeah, because it says Wisconsin barely squeaked in at number 24.
Okay, so it's been Wisconsin.
Yep.
I'm sorry for not having that off the top of my head. This is why I'm not a professional analyst. I'm still working through that. I love your support. I love your questions. I love Scott's support. I love my producer Mike's support. Please stop that, Scott. If you haven't noticed, this is a very loose show. This is on YouTube. It is not on ESPN. I'm not represented by anybody. I'm not sponsored by anybody. This is my own camera. This is my own wall. This is my own shirt. This is my own hat. So this is my own show. Any and all blunders, misinformation is completely on me. I'd love to have your support. I keep moving closer to the camera, and I don't know why. Like I said, it's completely joking. It's completely jovial. I communicate with my tech producer, Scott, just keeping us back and forth. All the sports knowledge comes on me. If there's any problems you have, directed toward me. If you think I'm an idiot, if you think I'm a genius, please tell me. I'd love your support.
Don't stroke his ego.
I'm a sports I'm a sports guy, so naturally I don't have much of an ego. Okay, so there's SVSU, 52-17 last night, and it wasn't really that close. Let's get to Division I football. The Heisman. I'm not an expert on the Heisman. To me, what the Heisman represents is, yes, statistics, yes, record, but it also represents who the best player is in college football, and that means on the field and off the field, which is why I do not like Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, Mr. Signature, to get the Heisman this year. If he were to continue on this pace of statistics and play as incredible as he has, fine. Statistics do play a pretty big part in it, and I'm not, right now he has 31 touchdowns and 11 interceptions for 3,313 yards on the season. That's according to NCAA.com. That's pretty dang good, and I'm not going to fault him for doing well. I think he's a very, very good football player. And I do not doubt his ability on the field. If you were to give me a pick of one of the quarterbacks in NCAA, I'd pick him pretty high up. But the guy that I'm really watching, and I think a lot of people now are watching, but I've said this since the beginning, even though I didn't have this show in the beginning of the NCAA season, I've said it since the beginning. Jameis Winston, Florida State University, has not had blazing numbers. 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions for 2,661 yards. He has a 69% completion percentage. Johnny Manziel has a 73% completion percentage. Jameis Winston averages 295.7 yards per game. Johnny Manziel averaged 331.3 yards per game. So obviously statistics, and also Johnny Manziel has had one more game than Jameis Winston. So those a little bit skewed. So you could say 28 touchdowns for Johnny Manziel and 10 interceptions for 3,000 yards. Still better than Jameis Winston, and that's a rough drop average-wise. You know, that's just a speculation on my part. If he were to play one less game, that's what he would be. That it's not an actual statistic. But I think Jameis Winston exemplifies what the NCAA is. Not necessarily NCAA, what NCAA college football is. I watched Jameis Winston play, and he plays against good teams. He played against Wake, and they won 59-3. So not exactly, but his defense had 6 interceptions. Not exactly a spectacular team, but he plays against good teams. He makes intelligent decisions. He throws the ball away a lot instead of throwing for interceptions. He'll run for 2 yards instead of throwing an interception. He will make the smart plays. He will take a sack, which some people might say is not the right decision, but he'll take a sack instead of throwing an interception. He'll protect the football. He makes the right decisions, and he doesn't give away signatures for thousands of dollars off the field. I really have a problem with Johnny Manziel. I think he's a great football player, but Johnny Football, to me, does not exemplify what the Heisman should be. Okay, our next thing. We'll talk about the Dolphins Scandal. Richie Incognito, for a name that means inconspicuous, he has been anything but. He has always had, always because I don't know his high school, middle school career, but ever since he's been in college and in the pros, he's had a very conspicuous, kind of my word of the day, I guess, conspicuous career. He has hit a lot of people. He has made a lot of people mad. He had a bad reputation coming into Miami this year. But still, and actually, I just read something today, and I can't remember if it was NFL.com or if it was from Davies from Florida. Citation, I'm not sure which one it is, and I do not want to take credit for this. So whoever it was, if you're watching, well, thank you for watching. But this is not my statement. Apparently, he was put on the Miami Leadership Council. If you know anything about Richie Incognito, probably not one of the best decisions you've made. The GM, Jeff Ireland, and the coach for the Dolphins, probably not going to make it through this unscathed. Words once again taken away from one of those 2 articles that I read from either NFL.com or from Davies from Florida. Not my own words. They're probably, I don't know, it's not quite the same as the Bounty Scandal, because the Bounty Scandal was directly a coach leading the Saints defense into hitting people to take them out of the game and paying them for it. But this is pretty bad. And players seem to be, you have Martin, who has left the team, and he has speculation saying that he wasn't one of the guys. He wasn't part of the locker room atmosphere. He didn't want to be. He's in counseling for emotional distress. I don't know if that's legitimate or if it's a lawyer ploy. I'm not sure if it's legitimate. I have no problem with that. If it's a lawyer ploy, I do have a problem with that because it's sympathizing, and I don't like that. But whatever his case is, he's not really been one of the guys, as far as I've heard in the locker room. Richie Incognito, he had, if you haven't heard the voicemail, I don't have the voicemail audio, he had racial slurs, he had sexual innuendos, he had things saying about Martin's sister, things that, you would kind of think would be part of the locker room anyway. But this is a little too extreme. Leaving a voicemail like that on a new guy's, on a rookie's voicemail, there's the hazing, that's such a hot topic word. It's a hot word, hazing. There's a difference between hazing and harassment. Hazing could be the rookie has to carry the pads for the day. That's hazing. You have hazing in fraternities, which I don't have a problem with. That's initiation. That's taking your dues, paying your dues, and becoming a part of the group. Harassment, on the other hand, is completely different. There's a very fine line, and I'm not going to sit here and say this is okay and this isn't, because it changes for everybody. Harassment is wrong. It all counts. obviously that's what the definition of harassment, not the definition, but what the connotation of harassment is. It's always wrong. So you have to be very careful. But hazing, this isn't hazing. This isn't normal procedure, and it's been, passed around the league. This is not normal. This has gone too far, and I think Richie Incognito, especially, who's been suspended indefinitely for conduct detrimental to the team, that happened last week or the week before. Martin has left the team after these speculations in the locker room and in the lunchroom. I think it actually was. I think it was the team lunchroom that when Richie Incognito said something or did something to where Martin walked and left the team. I don't know who to support in this. I don't know if I want to support Incognito. I don't want to support Incognito because of, it is his voice. He has agreed that it is his voice. He has owned up to it. But he's also disagreed with the severity of it. He says that it is part of the locker room, it is normal, and I don't agree with that, so I can't support him. I'm not sure if I can support Martin, because if this is legitimate harassment, then I support it morally. I support it, but if this is a lawyer ploy, if this is an emotional ploy to try and, whatever in the courtroom, I can't support that. So I'm not sure who to support. And I'm not saying I'm not going to try and persuade you to support one or the other. Richie Incognito, the voicemail did other things, racial slurs, sexual innuendos to Martin, who is a rookie this year for the Miami Dolphins offensive line. Never really been one of the, according to Richie Incognito and the other Miami Dolphins teammates, has never really been one of the guys, has never really wanted to fit in. Martin has left the team, he's emotionally distressed, which I assume is correct. The severity of it, I'm not sure. It's different for every guy, and if you were to go through this, you'd be emotionally distressed too. So I do not disagree with that. It's just the severity and how it's being used, those words, emotionally distressed. So Martin has left the team, Richie Incognito has been suspended, the head coach and Jeff Ireland are probably going to get some sort of penalty, whether it's fired, whether it's, I don't know what it'll be. I'm not going to speculate and say that I know what the owner is going to do. But this is not a good situation. I think this has really dropped morale for the Miami Dolphins. They started off the season 4-0. They're now 4-4. That's wrong. They started off the season 3-0. They went 3-4. Then they beat the Dolphins on Thursday night on a walk-off safety. Gotcha. See, I can remember this all on my own. So the Dolphins are 4-4. They're a 500 team in the AFC East, where the Jets are 4-4, where the Patriots are 6-2. Yeah, they're 6-2 or 5-3, 6-2. Pretty sure it's 6-2. And then there's the Buffalo Bills, who are 3-5. They're pretty good. I think they're 3-5. I have them right here. Why do I even need to look it up? See, look at that. This is what I used last week. I don't even think about that. Man, I am a genius. New England 6-2. The Jets are 4-4. Miami's 4. See, I was right. Jets are 4-4. Dolphins are 4-4. Buffalo's 3-5. New England 6-2. See, I remember all this stuff.
Yeah, don't doubt yourself, Steve.
Don't ever doubt myself. The division. Don't ever doubt yourself, kids. The division.
And don't do drugs.
And don't do drugs. Message to the children. Joking. Well, not joking about that, but this is a joking environment, in case you haven't figured that out. So that division is very tough, and I think Miami is going to really drop off, which is a shame because they were doing so well. I like Ryan Tannehill. I like what they were doing in Miami. So there's a situation as I see it with Miami. Take it as you will. Do more research. I do not want you to make your judgments based on what I'm saying. I want you to do research on this because this is a big deal. This might have legislation passed down to say what is okay and what is not okay in the locker room. Don't know what's going to happen with Martin and with Incognito's careers. Don't even know if they're going to have careers after this. So this is a very big deal. Okay, now that we're done talking about the Miami Dolphins, we're going to talk about I talk fast. And I'm going to talk about, now we're going to talk about my NFL matchup for the week. And that is Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. Pretty sure they're heading to San Francisco. Check on that. Pretty sure they're heading to Candlestick Park, the last year of Candlestick Park, to take on Colin Kaepernick and the San Francisco 49ers. The Carolina Panthers are 5-3. San Francisco is 6-2, and this is a big, big game. The other game that's pretty big is Detroit, who is 5-3, and Chicago, who is 5-3, 6-2, 5-3, 6-2, 6-2, 5-3. I don't remember. I have it on here. Was this last week's though? Is this up to date? Yeah. It is, because this is up to date. Chicago is 5-3. Detroit is 5-3. This is up to date. That's a pretty good game, and that really decides the division because Aaron Rodgers is going to be out for a minimum of 2 weeks. What do you got, Scott?
It's at San Francisco.
See, I was right. Never doubt myself. At San Francisco, at Candlestick. The rule of 3 time zones, which a friend of mine really likes to throw out there, and then he'll contradict himself later. Kind of funny. Big game, and I think a lot of people going, and myself included, we're not a Cam Newton supporter. We're not a Cam Newton believer. He had not really shown what he can do the first 2 years of his career. Coming out of Auburn, with Gene Chizik, who was an Iowa State coach before that, went undefeated in Auburn in the SEC, won the championship. Cam Newton went to Carolina after Jake Delhomme played there, went to the Super Bowl there with John Fox in 2005. Not sure on that. 2003. It was one of the Patriots' Super Bowls. I think 2001 the Patriots beat the Rams. 2002 the Patriots beat... Was that the Patriots? Or the Panthers? And then the Patriots beat who in 2004? Because the Steelers, it was the Eagles in 2005. It was either the Eagles... I'll check back with you on that. I used to know that. I know who the winners are, but I can't remember who the losers were. Story of sports. Don't remember who the losers were. Anyway, back to whatever the heck I was talking about. Cam Newton wasn't a believer. Colin Kaepernick, still shaky on him. He's played very well. This is when a real quarterback shows his mettle, though. He lost to San Francisco and he lost to Indianapolis. Indianapolis, the only team to beat Denver, the only team to beat Seattle, one of only 2 teams to beat San Francisco. Very good team. Look out for Indianapolis in the AFC playoffs, because they are going. They beat a very good Houston Texans team on Sunday night. Even though it wasn't Matt Schaub, it was Case Keenum. And Case Keenum played very well, and it made me very mad because Andre Johnson had over 200 yards, almost 200 yards in the first half. 3 touchdowns, it was 21-3, I think, at halftime. They came back and won 27-24, 24-21. I think it was 27-24. And, update on Gary Kubiak. I'm not sure if you guys have heard this. Gary Kubiak will be back next week. He is doing a lot better after having something that I can't pronounce happen. I think it's called like a warning stroke. He collapsed on the field as they were going to halftime. Did you not know this, Scott?
I didn't.
During the Sunday night game, we had actually left to go to the local convenience store, and I came back and they were showing video. He went down to all fours, and then he sat down on the field and he tried to get back up, but the trainers told him to lay down. He was held motionless, not motionless because he couldn't move, held motionless for a few minutes, and then he was wheeled off on a stretcher and taken to a local hospital. And I can't remember what. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a doctor of any kind. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a medical anything. So I can't pronounce whatever it is he had. He will be back next week. There's 2 coaches in 1 week in the AFC who were hospitalized. John Fox was hospitalized. He had heart surgery from Denver. He'll be back. Not sure when he'll be back. He's resting now in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is great. John Fox actually knew he was going to have heart surgery. He thought he could push it off until the end of the year, but he had to have it this year. Gary Kubiak had something go on with his heart, or maybe not his heart. He was dizzy, he was lightheaded, he went out on the field. But it's good to know that Gary Kubiak is doing a lot better, and that's good for the entire football league. Even though I'm a Colts enthusiast, I do not want to see anybody hurt. I hate injuries. If there's a way to stop it. And coaches, because Gary Kubiak is pretty fit. I'm not coming on to him. Gary Kubiak is pretty fit. He's pretty healthy. He takes care of himself. And as Chris Berman said, not that other coaches don't, but Gary Kubiak is really emphatic about keeping himself in shape. So it's good to know that Gary Kubiak is doing better. Aces up Gary Kubiak. Back to what I was talking about 20 minutes ago with Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick. I think that San Francisco will win at the rule of 3 time zones. And Cam Newton, I think, will be slowed down by the San Francisco defense. Even though San Francisco hasn't been as dominant as they were last year, they're still a pretty dang good defense. Colin Kaepernick and Cam Newton match up pretty well against each other. I think Cam Newton right now is better than Colin Kaepernick, just because Carolina does not have the aura, I guess, of being in San Francisco. the atmosphere, the ambiance of being a San Francisco team and having the whole package. The Carolina Panthers defense is very good. The offense is very good, but to me they're not quite San Francisco. And I say that with a grain of salt because I'm optimistic about the Panthers. I think now that they whooped up on Atlanta, I think it was 38-10. They just beat the snot out of Atlanta. This is Tony Gonzalez's last season. He's not coming back again. He came back this year after making it to the playoffs. If anybody deserves to win a championship, I believe it's him, but he's not going to. I think he's done after this year. Matt Ryan, I'm not sure what's going on with him. Atlanta's 2-6. Just awful this year. Just not playing well at all. So in the NFC South, Cam Newton will put pressure on Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints just lost to the New York Jets in New York, which was a good game. But it's very difficult for me, for some reason, to actually talk about what it is I'm supposed to talk about. Hit me every time I don't. I'm not saying you should actually hit me. It's a metaphor. This guy's disappointed because he wants to hit me. If you want to hit me, please do so. No, I'm just messing with you. I'd rather if you didn't hit me. I'm not a very strong guy, if you haven't noticed. Once again, back to what we were actually talking about. Do a little fisticuffs. Back to what we were talking about. San Francisco, I think, will beat Carolina. I think it will be a good game, but I think Colin Kaepernick will really show up and I think Cam Newton will have a better day, but I think Colin Kaepernick's offense will be better. I'm going to say 28-24, San Francisco. I think it'll come down to a fourth quarter drive. It may not be the last drive, but I think the decisive drive, and that's, it always comes down to a fourth quarter drive. Thank you, Captain Obvious. But I think that the game will be decided on a fourth. It might be early in the fourth quarter where Cam Newton throws an interception, loses momentum. Or it might be fourth quarter where there's a kickoff return for a touchdown for San Francisco. I think it will come down to the fourth quarter to really decide the game. So there it is. I think San Francisco will win. They'll go to 7-2 in the NFC West. I think Cam Newton and the Panthers will lose, going to 5-4 in the NFC South. There's Sports with Steve. This hasn't exactly been the most linear show. This is a very open show. It's a very joking show. It's a very jovial show, and I think I've used the word jovial like 4 times today. That's another word of the day. Where's Pee Wee Herman when you need him? You don't ever need Pee Wee Herman. I don't even know if you guys know who that is. Scott's ready to push the button. He wants me to stop talking. For Mike, my producer back in Iowa, for Scott, my tech producer right here, I am Steve. If you want to ask me a question or follow me on Twitter at SVSU Iowa, I will post the link to this video to Twitter and to Facebook. Scott's got his trigger finger ready to go on the button to stop recording. Send me an email at SVSU Iowa. SVSUiowa@gmail.com. That at sign is at the beginning or end of everything. At SVSU Iowa on Twitter, SVSUiowa@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys next week.